You don't have to go and take 50 different herbs every day in
Right.
order to get the results you want. It can be really simplified in the way that you can bring them in.
If you are trying to get pregnant, this episode is for you. Welcome to Cycle Wisdom. I'm Mary Aline, occupational therapist and hormonal health educator. Today, I'm talking with clinical herbalist Mary McCallum, who is sharing her favorite herbs for fertility. Mary is the owner and founder of Mountain Song Medicines, based in the Sierra Nevadas. Welcome, Mary.
And super honored and grateful to be here and connect with you more and connect with all the listeners that are going to hear this amazing episode.
Yes. And I'm really excited about this episode because there's not a lot of really great resources out there for how to use herbs while you're trying to get pregnant.
It's definitely something that I feel like there's a great lack of, especially in the herbal world and herbal communities right now. I think there's a lot of information out there about pregnancy. There's a lot more that's coming out for postpartum support, but as far as conception, it's still an area that I think everybody feels a little bit in the dark.
That brings me to the first question. Why should we consider using herbal medicine to support conception and pregnancy?
Herbs are something that are deeply ancestral to all of us. And I think our bodies know herbs better than we know. All of our ancestors have worked with herbs, especially during conception and childbirth and pregnancy for many, many, many generations. I would say herbs can just be such a valuable tool in supporting so many pieces of conception specifically. What's amazing about herbs is that over time, our bodies are going to respond to the herbs so beautifully, and they can be super nourishing. They can help
Mhm.
with the stress that often comes with conception, which can be a big thing for a lot of folks and a
Yeah.
lot of couples. And they can support our pregnancy journey and that postpartum journey. I think herbs can be super accessible just from something so simple as starting to drink an herbal infusion daily to support our conception journey.
Herbs feel more gentle
Right.
for my system. So I think
Mhm.
as I identify as being on the more sensitive end of the spectrum and my herbal journey, I feel like a lot more held by that type by this medicine.
Yeah, me too. And totally resonate with that. This is just like a great kind of conversation to have here today is that we may not see the results that we want instantly from working with herbs,
Mm-hmm.
right? But over time, we will see that. And you don't have to go and take 50 different herbs every day in
Right.
order to get the results you want. It can be really simplified in the way that you can bring them in. And the other benefit that I really think about too when working with herbs for conception is that if you are working on supporting your endocrine system or your menstrual cycle, those can be, again, really tangible ways that the herbs can come and support those parts of your health. And that can be in conjunction with other therapies as well. And of course, when you're working on the lifestyle pieces or you're trying to also bring in more good foods into your meals, like herbs are just, I think of them as the adjunct faculty. It's like they just really come and complement everything.
What sort of disclaimers do we need to add here or recommendations around people making supportive choices for their bodies?
Yeah, thanks for naming that. And just so everybody knows from my perspective, and if I'm suggesting or recommending anything, I'm not a licensed doctor or not a licensed health practitioner. I'm a clinical herbalist. So my role is to help educate you all on resources and how to understand how herbs work in the body. And ultimately, then it is up to you or a practitioner to make that informed decision of how you want to work with the herbs.
Thank you for that.
I love them so much. Clearly, that's why.
Excellent. Well, let's maybe simplify this a little bit because I know when I was first starting, I was pretty overwhelmed when I was like, oh, I need to use this herb and I need to use this herb. And like, I didn't know what any of the words meant. And I just didn't know where to start. So, if you could identify 5 common herbs for
Yeah.
fertility that people can like dip their toes in, let's maybe start there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the number one herbs that I think about for conception is Vitex or Chaste
Just
berry, which is probably
Mhm.
one you're familiar with. Vitex is pretty unique in that it does have a pretty specific herbal action in our hormone communication. So it's actually increasing the communication between our brain, more specifically our pituitary gland, and communicating with our ovaries. So it can be super supportive to helping a cycle that is maybe gotten a little short. That's very helpful to support progesterone levels and to support ovulation. Vitex can be really amazing if somebody's cycling irregularly or wanting to work with an herb that's going to help their cycles and their ovulation get a little bit more regular. It's definitely like with anything, herbs are not a one size fits all. So there are exceptions where Vitex may not be the best herb for you. So definitely chatting about your cycle specifically with an herbalist or with somebody like you, Mary, who's a fertility awareness educator or natural practitioner or your doctor. There's times where Vitex doesn't work
Mhm.
naturally like you thought it may work for your body. But in someone that is cycling, it is suggested that you work with it in that follicular phase before ovulation, before you're getting ready for the luteal phase. So that is when it really does its magic.
What's the best way to take Vitex? Is it tincture? Is it like plant matter,
Yes.
infusions?
Yeah, good question. For Vitex, I would suggest if you do okay with tinctures, that a tincture would be the best way. It's going to be a little bit more concentrated and it really gets in the system a little better than some other methods. Tinctures are really, they are a newer age way to consume herbs. And for those of you that don't know what a tincture is, it's an alcohol extract of the herb, and it's not going to get you drunk or tipsy because you're taking a really small amount of a very concentrated, usually about 60 drops a day. It was like an average dose for most tinctures. The way that they extract constituents from the plant matter and the way that our body absorbs them is a very quick process in comparison to drinking like a tea or taking a capsule. There are some better capsules. I do like the Gaia brand. No affiliation with being sponsored or anything, but they make a lot of phytocaps, and that is a better capsule than, say, like a powdered herb. So, um, yeah, just things to think about as far as ways to, yeah, ingest the herbs there.
So,
Should we move on to my
yeah,
next herb, or
yeah,
do you
yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah,
learn any more?
totally. Second herb.
Awesome. I will say last thing about Vitex, I'm like, just kidding, is that if you are trying to conceive and you do end up getting pregnant, you want to stop taking the Vitex, is
Okay.
my suggestion there. So really specific for supporting cycles and conception, but if you happen to become pregnant, then that's a good time to stop taking it. The next one, of course, I have to talk about it because it is the famous conception and pregnancy herb is red raspberry leaf. Red raspberry leaf is the leaf of the raspberry plant. So many of you enjoy those delicious raspberry fruits, but these are the leaves. So if you have raspberries, now you know you can be harvesting them and saving them for tea. They are incredibly mineral rich, similar to nettle, and we will talk about nettle as well because that's one of my other favorites for conception. But the difference with raspberry is they have really specific effects on supporting the uterus and supporting the uterine tone. So they have an affinity for the pelvic area. It's a wonderful herb to take to support how that uterine lining is shedding when you're menstruating every month and making sure that's really healthy. And at the same time, you're going to then be building up the blood and supporting minerals, which is just going to support your hormones and your fertility overall. And red raspberry leaf is one that I would specifically recommend to have as a tea. It can be drying.
Okay.
Something that we probably won't have this time to get all into is more about herbal energetics, which for those listening is really just means just like when we think about foods, right? We think about certain foods being like warming or cooling. Herbs have the same affinities because herbs work on the tissue states of the body. So raspberry leaf is one that can be drying. and tonifying and cooling. So if you feel like you're drinking your red raspberry leaf tea every day and it's making your lips feel dry or it's drying you out more, a quick herbal hack is you could add a little bit of marshmallow leaf or root to that. Or you also tend to run cold, then you could add a pinch of cinnamon or ginger, and that also makes it delicious.
I just started harvesting raspberries from my family farm. And
Wow.
I was like excited to, work with this plant. I tend to also be a little bit cold and drying, so it's good to know. For those of you who don't know your constitution, that's something that you can probably figure out online. There's like some self-tests, but also if you end up working with an Ayurvedic practitioner, they can also help you figure out your constitution and what might energetically be a little bit more supportive for your system. My question here is around timing of the cycle. Do you feel like this is a supportive herb throughout the entire cycle or at a specific phase?
Yeah, I think if you're somebody that's wanting to drink your cup of tea every day, that this could absolutely be a herb that could be easily blended with some other fertility supporting, especially like mineral rich herbs. So things like nettle or red clover or oat straw. But if you're also really wanting to focus on the uterine toning effects of the red raspberry leaf, then the best time to consume it would be prior to menstruation, which would be in the luteal phase.
For those who don't know, that's after you ovulate. That part of the cycle up until the first day of your bleed is considered the luteal phase. And that's the part of the cycle where people have the most feels about this part of our cycle. And sometimes it can be challenging. This is where like PMS symptoms and mood swings and other things related to cycle health can be more challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And you could, in that phase, absolutely add some nervous system supportive herbs like lemon balm or tulsi, right, to that infusion so that you're supporting the mood and that you're also getting those minerals and, uterine tonifying magic.
Perfect.
The next one, I have two adaptogens that I feel like are really important. And again, for those of you that feel newer to herbs or just what is an adaptogen, adaptogens are herbs that basically help our body's response to stress. So these are great for really everybody I think of in this life, in this day and age. We're all working through and moving through different stressors, whether that is that maybe that you already have kids and that you're a stay-at-home mom and you're running around doing all the things, or you have a really stressful job, or you have family stress or emotional stress, whatever it is, we all have stress. And as that stress accumulates, then that can be hard on our bodies. So adaptogens are amazing and that they help our bodies to adapt to the stress of our lives. And some of them can be a bit more energizing, some of them can be more calming, some of them can be really nourishing as well and help with sleep. I'm going to talk about two Ayurvedic herbs, first one being ashwagandha.
Okay.
And ashwagandha can be really, really amazing on the conception journey, specifically because it really helps to regulate and support stress hormones and just hormonal imbalances if that feels like that's been part of your picture, that you've been dealing with the stress cycle for a long time and that stress has been impacting your cycles or your hormones. It can really be, yeah, just such a nourishing one. And at the same time, it's also really supportive for sleep. So I love that it's just like it feels like that grounding rooted balm of an herb. And ashwagandha, the best way to consume it is in a powder. And it's always best consumed with fat, milk or ghee. And it's one that can be really easily incorporated into like a golden milk, or you could make even just like a warm milk with ashwagandha powder and honey and as like a little nighttime beverage. And those of us that may not have as much time to be making all the things, right? There's herbalists that make these things, or a tincture is also a great option for that as
Well,
well. Yeah.
so is that something that you would want to take in the evening? Can it make you sleepy during the day?
It usually doesn't make you sleepy, but if it is taken at night, then it is shown that it can just help support sleep, and it's going to help support sleep overall, but it can just be like a nice part of like the nighttime ritual. But you can absolutely take it just during the day too. Like if that is easier for you, you take your herbs and supplements at the same time, you go about your day. Sometimes I do recommend to clients that they take it at nighttime, like when they take their magnesium, just to see and if that can have an effect on the sleep even more so.
Aviva Ram has a really good recipe in her hormone intelligence book. It's like
Mhm.
a chai ashwagandha, like a no caffeine chai
Yeah, that sounds
ashwagandha.
great.
I just actually got some ashwagandha powder because I am also trying to manage my stress through herbal supports and adaptogens. So I'm excited to try that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to hear how it supports you. And yeah, so ashwagandha can be an amazing one and good to take every day, if you're on the conception journey, wanting to support, again, hormones and stress, and you're feeling maybe overwhelmed and burnt out. And the other one I'm going to talk about is Shatavari. You can say it however you want. I hear it both ways.
Mm.
This is another traditional Ayurvedic reproductive tonic. And this one is cooling and moistening. So it can
Oh.
be often considered a yin tonic as well. And just that it's very nourishing to the feminine, right?
Mhm.
And so I think of it as this perfect conception tonic of keeping the bowl of our bodies where the babies come into as like this warm and very nourished and supple environment. But Shatavari is wonderful in that it actually is really supportive for supporting ovulation and supporting cervical mucus
I
production.
was gonna
So this
ask, I
is
was like,
something
this
like,
sounds like a juicy adaptogen.
yeah, so this is something that, you could riff off of more here than me, but just to note that, yeah, Shatavari can be one that can help with that if maybe things are feeling a little drier, or you're not noticing your cervical mucus as much.
Cervical mucus is an unsung hero in a way, and we need to talk about it more. There's a lot of fertility drugs out there that are trying to mimic this, and cervical fluid actually is what extends our fertility. It's like what is literally keeping our species alive, because without it, we would only like be able to get pregnant 12 to 24 hours out of our entire cycle. That's how long an egg lives. So cervical fluid extends that window and can keep sperm alive long enough to reach an egg, even if you have exposure to sperm and the egg hasn't ovulated yet, which I think is
Mhm.
wild, right? The sperm can sort
Yeah,
of hang out and wait and have
yeah,
cervical fluid to keep them nourished
mm,
until the egg ovulates. So great to
yeah,
know that Shatavari is a herb for that
yeah,
adaptogen.
yeah. And it's I love it. Like it's one of my, like, for my body really loves that one. I actually have it in my golden milk blend rather than having ashwagandha, because again, not everybody does great with ashwagandha. So, but I feel like with shatavari, most people just do really well with it.
Do you recommend taking it also in powder form like ashwagandha?
Yeah, similarly, you can also take this one as a tincture as well. And both ashwagandha and Shatavari can be also taken as a tea, but the most important thing to note about them is that with a tea, you're going to want to make a decoction. So, a lot of ways that we're
Because it's
used
a
to,
root, right?
because it's a root, right? And there's a lot of the medicine is a lot of the polysaccharides that actually need to have a little bit of heat and friction to
Mhm.
actually extract those constituents, where a lot of the herbs and the teas that we drink are what are more known as infusions, which is more simply put, just pouring hot water over herbs. Typically, leaves and flowers are best for infusions. And then a decoction, which is simmering the herbs. You don't need to do like a crazy herb boil. For some Chinese herbs, there is processes like that. But for either one of these herbs that we're talking about, decocting it in 4 cups of water, I would say like using about a fourth of a cup of the herb and then simmering it on low for about 15 to 20 minutes and straining that. And you'll really see the difference in just the medicine and how the herb tastes. This is specific for roots and berries and barks, anything that is a lot denser. Then we want to do decoctions versus infusions as much as we can.
Perfect.
Yeah.
One more.
Yes. Okay. One more. I have to talk about nettle.
I
And
do love nettle.
I mean, I have it in one of my teacups here with some tulsi and chamomile today. And I love nettle so much. It is really the mineral powerhouse of all the herbs. And its effects and the way that it nourishes our body are more than we have time for today. But what I can say is that if you are looking to support conception and just increase your fertility and your essence during this time, then this is think of this as your multivitamin, but instead it's going to be your multivitamin herbal infusion. And yeah, the best way to do nettle is to do a tea. And I actually recommend doing overnight infusions. I use like
Okay.
a quart mason jar, and then I put about a half a cup. You can also do more if you want, but a half a cup would be, I would say, the minimum of nettle in there and fill it up with water. And you can do it on the counter or you can put it in the fridge overnight. And that just allows for a longer infusion process to really extract all those amazing minerals. Nettles also have a lot of vitamins in them as well. So it's like when I say multivitamin, it is the minerals and the vitamins that we want to support conception. And it's very, very nourishing and something that can be regularly consumed throughout the cycle and also continue to be consumed throughout pregnancy, postpartum. And again, like I mentioned with the raspberry leaf, it's one that is really lovely blended with other herbs. So I often like to add a little bit of like orange peel or rose hips to my nettle. Or like today I have tulsi and chamomile because I'm in the luteal phase. So here I am supporting my mood and mental health while also getting the minerals in. And yeah, nettle tea is wonderful. Nettle vinegars are also a great way to work with nettle because vinegar extracts a lot of minerals as well. So that can be something you could make a little oxymel, which is like a herbal vinegar and honey syrup. You could make a nettle vinegar to put on your foods or salad dressings, or also eating nettles. Anytime you have the opportunity to either harvest them yourselves, they do have lots of little tiny stingers. So most people want to harvest with gloves, but also just to communicate that those little stingers are also a big part of their medicine and they have really impactful antihistamine effects. So they're great for inflammation and allergies as well. A lot of farmers also grow nettles, so you can ask maybe, or maybe you'll find them at the farmers market. Typically, that's going to be in the spring. Sometimes in the fall, there'll be a second flush, but you can make things like nettle pestos, or I love making like nettle quiche. I make lots of different nettle soups, like potato soup, like make a potato leek soup and put nettles in there. And my claim to fame is nettle sog, which is an Indian dish that's typically used with spinach, but instead of spinach, I use nettle.
Okay.
And then I
When can I
homemade.
come over for dinner?
Yeah, come on over.
So much value. You are just a wealth of information, and it's so important to make herbs accessible. I'm curious though, ashwagandha and shatavari, where are those typically from origin
Yeah,
wise?
typically grown in India.
Okay.
And this is a good thing to bring up too, just to talk about sourcing of herbs,
Mhm.
is ashwagandha is one that you all probably have heard about because it's been very, very popularized by
Mhm.
the supplement industry. But you definitely want to make sure, I would say, with ashwagandha, shatavari, Chinese herbs, and turmeric is another one. just to throw out a few other ones. But these ones more specifically, because they are grown here, and you can definitely find smaller herbal farms that are growing them here in the US. But once you get onto that bigger scale, they're mostly going to be coming from India. And yeah, you want to make sure that you're really getting it from a source that is either certified organic, third party tested, that it's a reputable source. Probably not purchasing a random ashwagandha supplement on Amazon would
Yeah.
be my suggestion, because they can be really tampered with. And this has been a big thing that's come out specifically with ashwagandha and turmeric. What's being sold is not what it is. So
Mhm.
yeah, and then otherwise, with herbs, I love to source local, right? Or grow what you can in your garden. Nettles are super easy to grow once you start an established patch. Raspberries, of course, grow in lots of places. And like what else? Oh, Vitex. Vitex is it's a tree, looks more like a large shrub, also something that you could grow. I suggest people to start, that are getting really excited with herbs, is you can start with companies that are reputable, like Mountain Rose Herbs or Pacific Botanicals, that often grow a lot of their own herbs and source them, and are constantly vetting and sourcing the farms that they're sourcing from. A
Beautiful.
lot of stuff comes from their own farms or the US, but then they also have relationships with good quality international farms. And before you even think about that, see if there's an herbalist in your area, because that's the best way, or growing it yourself, or seeing if your community farm is growing herbs. But if there's an herbalist near you, then they're probably going to have a good idea if an herb that you're looking for is available locally, or maybe they're already making something that has an herb or a formula that you're looking for. I have a whole list that's actually in my online course of US farms, small farms, to look at first versus going to the
Thanks.
big
Mhm.
guys.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, as we all know, like, the world is ever changing, and small farms and small businesses are continuing to get hit hard. So support the small guys.
Right.
And also, like, you'll just really feel and notice such a difference in the way that these herbs taste and work in your bodies. Just make sure that you're getting your herbs from trusted sources.
Thank you for all of those resources. Thank you for getting us started in the world of herbal medicine and fertility. If you have been getting value from this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And if you have experience with any of these herbs, share in the comments below and let us know your thoughts. Let's transition into safety with herbal medicines. And are there any herbs that we want to avoid if we are trying to conceive?
The good news is a lot of herbs that are not suggested safe for pregnancy are safe to be working with during conception. If you do conceive, those ones that are not safe for pregnancy, you'll want to stop as soon as you know that you're pregnant. What I could say overall is that once you do conceive, then you want to stay away from herbs that are emmenagogues, which means that they are blood moving and specifically stimulating to the pelvic region and the uterus.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, blood moving herbs. So herbs that are going to have big effects on how the fluids in our body are moving, because for pregnancy we want to keep, right, the uterus or the womb in this perfect little nest, and we don't want a lot of movement. We just want lots of nourishment. I would say most herbs are fine to be working with during conception. If you are actively trying to conceive, then you just want to be cautious and aware of staying away from those herbs in the luteal phase. So you
Mm.
can work with a lot of herbs in the follicular phase, say, like, if you're wanting to work with that Vitex, or you're wanting to have liver support in the follicular, but then you want to think of the luteal more as a nourishing time. If you're not trying to conceive right now, then you can work with a lot of these herbs just over time and then just kind of go at your own pace. But I would say it's definitely different with conception than pregnancy. There's a new really amazing
Mm.
book from a great herbalist here in the States, and it's called the Herbal Fertility Handbook. It just came out. She has a great resource list in there, the difference with herbs for conception versus pregnancy. Ashwagandha, for example, is not one that is recommended if you do conceive, but you can definitely take it on the conception journey. Going back to a lot of these herbs have been used for hundreds, thousands of years. They've been
Mhm.
used safely throughout conception and pregnancy and postpartum, but we know more now. So just think of all of those good, like nourishing, gentle herbs as those are the ones that are always safe. The mineral rich herbs, the blood building versus then blood moving.
Moving. Okay.
So building is going to be like lots of antioxidant rich herbs like elderberry and rose hips or goji berries, things like that. Mineral rich herbs like raspberry and red clover and oat straw and nettle. Those are really safe if you're actively trying to conceive, staying away from emmenagogues or blood moving herbs or just stronger herbs. We don't have a lot of research to
Right.
state this because it's pretty unethical to do research studies on pregnant women. So, a lot of what we do know here is actually very ancestral for how these herbs have been worked with in Western herbalism and Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese medicine.
I'm curious around like fertility treatments. Some people may be on an IVF journey or an IUI journey or freezing their eggs. Should somebody that's on that path really seek out a practitioner, a clinical herbalist before they decide to add in herbal medicine into their journey?
Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely fine to be taking those and consuming those nourishing herbs. But if you're wanting more specific support, then it would be good to talk to a qualified practitioner. And I would just say overall, it would be best to stay away from herbs that are going to be like Vitex, for example, because a lot of those drugs are doing similar things. And we don't want to bring an herb in that's going to hinder the effect of that medication. You could start drinking some nourishing infusions. And then if you're like, I really need more support with my mental and emotional wellness, I don't know if these herbs are safe, then definitely talk to a qualified practitioner and staying away from the ones that are going to impact hormones, especially in the brain.
Thank you so much for carrying this wisdom with you. And thank you so much for sharing with us. And this is going to be part of a 3-part series, which I'm excited about. I'm going to have Mary back on, and we're going to talk about herbs for pregnancy and also herbs to support postpartum. You might see the video linked above if it's done. If it's not, hold on, it is in process. And I want to promote Mary's work. She has an online apothecary called Mountain Song Medicines. I had the beautiful opportunity to try some of her herbal products, and they are just top notch, high quality. I can just feel the love that goes into these herbal medicines. They are sustainable, ethically sourced, and also some of the herbs are wild harvested in the Sierra Nevada mountains, which I feel like is extra special. So you can work with Mary virtually. She offers in-person classes, and then she also has a self-paced course if you want to learn how to develop your own in-home apothecary, which I will link all of those in the show notes.
Thank you, Mary. And thanks everybody that's here listening. And I encourage you to look at all the resources that we're going to share with you and reach out if you have questions or if you're new to herbs. I want to hear from you and I want to support your journey.